Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be talking about just some of the tips of writing advice that I've personally heard from people that I just love and live by. So let's just get right into the video. So number one, outline your fucking book. Listen, I have nothing against pantsers. If you can go into your book with knowing little or nothing about it, hey, that is great for you. I'm happy for you and honestly kind of jealous. But for the majority of writers, having an outline is like an essential part of the writing process because it just makes everything so much easier. And I am definitely one of the writers that needs an outline. My outline isn't as in-depth as other outlines are, but it's still, I mean, it's pretty in-depth. My outlines are typically somewhere between 30 and 40 pages. So it's definitely like detailed. It's just not as detailed as I've heard other people's are. But anyways, I just think that outlining is such an important part of the writing process, and I definitely think that for like most writers, like outlines are a godsend and you should use them, and don't be ashamed that you need to outline because honestly most writers do. Number two, fuck motivation and inspiration. Oh my god. I feel like everywhere people are like, how do I get inspired to write? How do I get motivated to write? And it's like, first of all, if you're waiting for motivation and inspiration to just come to you so that you can write, I've got some bad news for you. That's probably gonna happen like once a month, if that. Listen, it's not that people are never motivated or inspired to write. Like, as writers, we definitely are. I just don't think that it's realistic to rely on this feeling, especially because sometimes when you're motivated to write, you literally can't write. What if you're motivated during finals week? Or what if you're motivated on Christmas? Or fuck, on your birthday? Yeah, sounds like you can't really write right now, huh? And there's nothing wrong with trying to get into a good writing groove. Just don't rely on motivation or inspiration, because if you do, your book is going to take a lot longer than it would have if you would have just shut the fuck up and made yourself write even when you didn't feel like it. Number three, show, and more show. Make sure you are showing in your work, not telling. This is still something that I honestly struggle with in my writing. And the thing about show versus tell is that the reason that showing is so important is because it's just so much more impactful and fun to read versus telling. And this is something I've realized a lot more as I have started to make reading more of a priority in my life. And as I've read more books, I've realized that when authors like tell a lot, it really gets on my nerves. And it's kind of just like, can you just show something for the love of God? So I think that reading can also kind of help you understand why showing versus telling is so important. But just like as writers, we need to make sure that we are showing readers our work, because no one likes a book where everything is told to them and they don't get to like imagine anything. It's like, no, that's boring. So make sure you are showing in your work. Definitely a piece of writing advice that I live by and that I try to remember as I edit. Number four, you never stop learning, so continue to get feedback and to educate yourself. Listen, I don't care if you've written one book or 10, there's always room for improvement. Even with my favorite authors, each one of their books is better than the last, because as writers, everyone improves as they write more. And don't be one of those writers who is just like, I'm too skilled for feedback. There is nothing wrong with my work. It's a perfect first draft. Like, there's no such thing as a perfect first draft, and there's no such thing as a perfect writer. There's no such thing as a perfect book. So just throw out that hope all together and make sure you are getting feedback on your work, and make sure that you are continuing to learn and just grow as a writer. You and your readers will thank you. And I kind of just touched on this, but number five, there's no such thing as a perfect draft. I know that we all want to be that special writer who on their first draft, it's just perfect and it's amazing and it's published ready. But that literally never happens. Every writer goes through edits, because chances are it took you months or even years to write that first draft. So by the time you finish it, ideally you should have been able to grow as a writer, which is why you're able to notice flaws in it. And honestly, I would argue that like you'll never get a perfect book, because perfection is subjective. There are some books that I quite literally think are perfect, like I see no flaws in them, but I also know people who hate those books with a burning passion and are kind of just like, what the fuck, Kylie, that book is so awful. No, it has so many flaws, but I don't see it that way, because guess what, reading is subjective. So some people are going to love your book and some people are going to hate it. That's just how it goes. Number 6, schedule your writing time. I think that a lot of people kind of treat writing as like a thing that they can do when they have the time. And that's fine if you want to write as a hobby. But I would argue that if you want to make writing a job one day, you're gonna need to schedule it. Because if I just wrote when I had the time, I'd never fucking write. Because guess what? As people, our schedules are probably super busy as it is. You might already have a job, you might go to school, and you probably have friends, family, and hobbies, which means scheduling your writing time is going to save your ass. And if you want to know how I schedule my writing time, or if you want to know how to make a writing routine that you will actually stick to, I will have my productivity mini-series linked down below as usual if you want to go and check it out. Number 7, every writer's process is completely different, and you have to figure out what works best for you. I know a lot of writers, and I have done a lot of research into different writers' writing and publishing processes, and I don't think I've ever seen 2 writers like writing process that is the exact same. Every writer's process varies, which means that you need to try out different methods and see what works best for you. For example, some people love writing sprints. I know a lot of writers who adore writing sprints, and they're super helpful for them, and that's great. But for me, I've realized over time that when I write in sprints, the quality of my writing sucks, and most of the time I end up having to rewrite whatever I wrote during sprints because it's just so bad. So now I write over long periods of time just because that works out so much better for me. So I think that it is really important as writers to experiment with different methods and figure out what works best for you, and don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to try something else out, because like I said, everyone's writing process is different, and you just have to figure out what works for you and stick to that. Number 8, figure out your characters before you start writing for them. This is something that I heard all of the time, and I never understood like why it was such an important thing until I started editing my book, and I was like, oh fuck, that's why everyone said to figure out the characters first. And here's the thing, when you write a book in the point of view of a character, but you don't fully understand that character and like what they would do and what their motivations are and stuff like that, sometimes that runs you into a lot of problems when you're editing, because you or your CP or one of your betas will kind of just be like, hey, why is this character doing this when that makes like no sense for their character like psyche thus far. That's so out of character. What the fuck? That is probably because you don't understand your character well enough, and it's not enough to just understand your MCs really well. You also need to pretty much understand any character that's going to be important to the plot, because if you don't and they do something that is seen as out of character, that's going to be a huge problem. And if you just understand your characters prior to writing for them, that is going to cut down a lot of editing time, because chances are that if you write for a character before you fully understand them, you are going to have to rewrite a lot of scenes, because the exact actions that your characters take won't make sense for the story and for them as the character. And there are a lot of different methods for you to understand your characters. Some writers just figure this out as they outline or brainstorm their story. Some people use character sheets. Some people make a character spreadsheet. Some people make character profiles. It really just depends on you and what works best for you, and I would recommend experimenting with several options until you figure out what works best for you. Number 9, diversity fucking matters. Shocking, right? So I know that we're all just so shocked that I care about diversity in fiction. It's not like I've made several videos on this exact topic. Okay, but jokes aside, it is so important for you to have diverse characters. You need to have characters that are of different races, ethnic groups, sexualities, gender orientations. I could go on. And the thing about books that don't include diverse characters is that those books aren't realistic, and people get really pissed off, including me, when you don't include diversity in your work. So just make sure that you are writing diverse characters. Your readers will thank you. And lastly, number 10, good writers are also readers. How many times have you heard that in order to be a good writer, you also need to read? Probably a fuck ton. And chances are that if you are a writer, you are also a reader, because many writers grow up loving to read, and thus that makes them want to write their own stories, which is great. Then you're already doing the thing. But there are some writers who don't really care for reading for a variety of reasons. For me, I definitely used to fit in that category because I kind of just wanted to write all the time, and I never really placed a huge emphasis on reading. But as I continued to write, I kind of realized that my writing was suffering because of that. So now I make a point to read at least 2 hours every night before I go to sleep, and that has made a huge difference. And if you want some reading recommendations, I will have my Goodreads linked down below, where I rate all of the books that I read, and I usually do a small review for each of them, and then I have different shelves for all of the different books that I read. So that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please give it a big thumbs up and hit that big red subscribe button down below and turn on those post notifications so that you know every time that I upload. And that is all that I have for you guys today. Comment down below what writing advice you live by. I would love to hear it, and stay tuned because very soon I will be talking about writing advice that I hate. So get excited. I don't fucking know. And that's all that I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.